Welcome to episode 2 of PKRG-TV's Wellbeing series. I'm your host, Trevor Dublin, and I'm honored to be here today with Robert Douglas, who will help us to understand how diverse, equitable, and inclusive organizations and communities can enhance our well-being. So Robert holds a bachelor's degree in communications from the University of Memphis, a master's degree in clinical psychology from Pepperdine University, and he's currently enrolled in a doctoral candidate in the clinical psychology at Liberty University. Now, Robert is also a Superbowl winner, so we're really honored to have him here today. Robert owns Clarity Triumph Coaching and Consulting and provides life coaching services. He's also the president of business development for Advantage Care Post-Acute. As a member of the 2008 Super Bowl number 52 champion New York Giants NFL football team, Robert has developed a first-hand understanding of what it takes to succeed at the highest level of professionalism and professional development. So, Robert, I just want to take this time to really welcome you. You're not only obviously a friend, but you're a great colleague, and we're really, really honored to have you here today.
Well, glad to be here.
How are you doing? You doing good?
I'm doing good. I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you. So, so I have a couple questions for you, but I guess the first question is, what does the term diversity mean in the context of our workplace and our communities?
When I think of diversity, I typically think of acceptance. There, especially in the tri-state area, there are people of many different backgrounds, genders, race, age, sexual orientation. A diverse community is just everyone being in harmony. With all the differences that we all have, just being able to function normally and be accepted by all parties, all populations. It's just no matter whom you are, come as you are accepted. And that's what I think of when I think of diversity.
So I'm sure that you probably learned quite a bit about diversity, obviously, as a football player. Do you feel that that's kind of helped you to bring you to where you are today?
I guess the one thing about my career post-football, I know I've been asked this question a lot of, often. How does football relate to where you've become now? The honest answer that I can give is just, I'm personally more than an athlete. So sometimes it's hard for me to reel football into where I'm at now and the thoughts and the processes that I go through at this point. Playing football, you're typically amongst men of the same population. Most, I believe the player population is 70% African American. Most of us we're around the same age. So I typically just was in an arena where it was just most of us were, have similar backgrounds, similar upbringings, things of that nature. But once stepping into, the healthcare arena, that's when things started to just really, really, really be eye-opening as far as diversity goes, equity for sure, and also feeling included.
So you basically what you're saying is that as a football player, until you stepped into that, I guess, from that arena into the current healthcare arena where you are, we'll talk a little bit more about that. That's kind of when something kind of ran, oh my gosh, this is maybe, where I was not as inclusive or diverse as, as where, is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, along those lines, and also education as well, becoming more enlightened to just systemic things and, having children and, at a certain point, you just start to see things differently. Playing football, I was definitely young. So one-track minded, from age 7 to 27, my whole life, everything for me was focused on football. Wow. Once I stepped away from football and I had to figure out my identity away from that sport, that's where, again, me deciding to, pursue further, higher education and really start to understand just behaviors and how they, operate. And it really, really took me down that path of just trying to understand some of the things that goes on, especially with diversity, equity, and inclusion.
As you're talking about just your experience, your educational background, and your experience obviously as a football player, one of the things that just kind of sticks out to me, because you mentioned all the years that you train, is discipline. I mean, that's that's huge foundation, because without discipline, you really can't achieve any of the things that you've, whether it's a football player or just your educational accolades. It's that's huge. And so that's obviously
I guess the discipline for me, and part of being a life coach, is just holding, it's just accountability to self. Sometimes people lose sight of that. I always held myself accountable. I didn't really have to depend on anyone else to tell me to wake up and go work out, or get up and complete your work for school and my master's degree and things of that nature. It's when I have a goal and wanted to, pursue that goal, I just go at it. And yes, the discipline component of it is very, very important.
It's fantastic. So for all the, obviously the sports enthusiasts that are watching and young people that are watching, I mean, it's really a great example and, great, skills stuff you're talking about. So I really appreciate that. But I wanted to kind of talk about your most recent work. I mean, I know you're working in the healthcare setting, including skilled nursing rehab and mental health, right? How does that notion of equity apply to in such settings?
Equity is treating everyone equal, no matter what their race, their gender, age, orientation, any of those things. It's really just, again, doing your best to make sure that everyone feels comfortable, and not really have to look over their shoulder, and worry or have to question if they're being paid the same rate, or if they're going to get that promotion that they've worked so hard for. It's really just making sure that the playing field is equal for everyone. As far as treatment goes for individuals that come in for either physical health, go to a hospital or they go to their doctor's office and things like that. Part of the systemic issue is that all insurances don't give the same treatments for the most part.
Right.
So we're already at a disadvantage at that point for equity, with that component. Some people have to pay more, some people have to pay less, some people don't pay at all. But you expect that your care provider treats you the same that they'll treat the person next to you, whether that person is male or female, whether that person is homosexual or non-homosexual, that individual is old or young, things of that nature. You just want the treatment to be the same across the board.
So let's talk for a little bit, I guess, of just inclusion in the workplace, and especially in healthcare, right? What does that look like? I mean, I know healthcare tends to be very, diverse, but at the same time skewed to a certain, sort of segment or population. Let's unpack that a little bit.
Inclusion has to be meaningful. You can have representation of some sort, but you still just want it to be meaningful inclusion. Individuals want to feel heard. They want to feel respected. And when you have a department that feels that way, they feel as if their ideas are being really, really, really heard, or really a possibility that it can be used. I mean, I've spoken to individuals that say they take ideas to their higher ups, and their higher ups either take their ideas and give them no credit, or take their ideas and put them in the trash, and mentally that'll take a toll on you.
Sure.
It'll start to just tear away at your self-esteem for the most part, and you can possibly just go into a depression, or not like your job, or not feel the integrity of it all. It just tears away at you. So one of those things that we all try to do, especially when going in and consulting with a company or a corporation or an office, is that is that the inclusion is just meaningful, and that's very important to me.
Mm-hmm.
Companies that have a more diverse and equitable and inclusive environment, they tend to make 30 to 40% more revenue.
Is that correct?
Yeah,
Wow.
30%, 30 to
awesome.
40% more revenue than those that aren't as diverse.
Mm-hmm.
So it just pays to, focus on making everyone feel respected.
So how can that occur if the level playing ground is not, I guess, equal to begin with? Because I think that that's probably some of the outcry and the challenge of people that are not included, right? It's like I don't have the same sort of background, what is it, financially or just family history to to kind of start me off at this base where somebody else. What are the statistics that that you're aware of, and how it relates to diversity and inclusion in the healthcare population?
Well, definitely in the healthcare population, I know that most physicians, I believe around 69% of the physicians in America are white. I know that as far as definitely African American doctors make up about 5%.
Wow.
So with that being said, there's a divide. There's
And the population, the black population, is about 13%, right?
Right, and
Versus-
from don't quote me, but from the United States Census that they took around, a few years back in 2020, I say, I believe, white Caucasian made up around 50 to 60% of America, I would say. Hispanic made up was around 18%. African Americans around between 13 and 12%. And I'm giving you estimates, and Asians around 6 to 7% of America. It's definitely interesting when looking at those numbers and just seeing, the trends of certain things where inclusion kind of falls off. I know that there's a high rate of African American females that die during birth because they just don't feel heard. They can say that they're in pain and they're just not treated equally, or feel as if they're respected at that certain point. So it's things like that kind of raise an eyebrow and cause us to kind of want to go back and think and go back to the drawing board and see if there's anything that we can possibly do to mitigate those type of things from happening.
It's just very interesting. So you also earned a diversity, equity, and inclusion workplace certificate.
Yes, from the University
of
Florida.
South Florida, right?
Yeah.
Tell us something. What does that allow you to do, and how did you get that distinction?
Those certificates are out there. It was just a 7-week program. You sit down, you definitely go through the materials that were given. You have tests that you have to take as well. It really wasn't too complicated, but it was very informative. You just start to come up with understanding of how to kind of navigate those things. I did it after I got my master's. It kind of was something that, if I wanted to go out and consult to, businesses, I wanted to have that type of information to be able to forward to them and educate them on, so that if diversity, equity, and inclusion is something they're looking to pursue with their company and make it, whom they're becoming or whom they are, I wanted to be very informed on the practice of it all.
Okay, great. So give us an example, I guess, of just, what is, when you are before these or working with these organizations, what are some of the practical things that you're sharing with them that they can utilize, right, within the organization to create, inclusivity and, equality? Give us an example of what you're telling them that they can do or should be doing.
Definitely with having a diverse and equitable and inclusive environment, emotional intelligence, just being able to read if you've offended someone or if someone's unhappy, and really honestly, again, being meaningful and caring about if an individual doesn't feel respected or they feel as if they're being heard. Stereotypes and biases, bringing those to the forefront. It's just one of those things that you got to kind of talk about it. It's an elephant in the room, but if you're able to really individually look at what your worldviews are and look at the stereotypes that you may have towards someone and really put those thoughts on trial to really see if they're actually true. That's one of the things that we kind of go through and, have exercises with. It's getting the organization to understand what they want to be. Again, think about the stat I said earlier of, diverse companies make 30 to 40% more money. If that's what you want to become, then you have to start to hold yourself accountable. Make sure that you're doing the right recruiting, the retention to keep those, keep that community diverse. Because you can get the representation, but you have to keep the representation of whatever diverse community you're looking for. And again, you can bring them on, but if you're not giving them meaningful inclusion or meaningful equity, they're going to leave. Nobody wants to stay. So it's really making sure that you keep all parties, happy with equality.
You just said something. You said putting the stereotypes or those thoughts on trial. What does that mean?
Let's just say you take a population and you say, hey, that population does one specific thing. All of them do the same thing. That's basically being stereotypical or, having a bias towards someone because of something that you may perceive to be true. Now, with that being said, sitting down and really honestly asking yourself if that is true for every person in that population. Put those thoughts on trial. Really see if that is really the case. Everyone just thinks differently. I prove it by, I had a group of 5 middle-aged white females. I asked them a specific color. And I asked them each, what are your thoughts when I say this specific color? 5 individuals of the same population, white, middle-aged, females, all had different answers. So it is impossible to think that everyone behaves, walks, talks, do the same thing. It's basically impossible. And to think that, that's what everyone does that is part of a certain population is just kind of ignorant to an extent.
So that helps to break down the stereotypes and obviously allows you to accept people, right? The differences that people have, which is a critical part of, acceptance, inclusivity, and diversity, accepting the diversity.
Yeah, every individual is definitely an individual. Everyone is different. There are, to look at all individuals, again, of a certain population and say, hey, they must have this upbringing or, they must have, daddy must have paid for them to go to school, things like that. You just don't know. So assuming or having a stereotype towards someone, it doesn't help. It doesn't help. Sometimes you really bark up the wrong tree when doing that. And again, in a workplace, there's no room for it because individuals become disgruntled. They become unhappy. And in this day and age, everyone has the opportunity to leave and do something else or go to a different company.
That's definitely true. So what are some of the obstacles that you found to be the most difficult to overcome when working with organizations and communities? And how have you been able to manage to succeed in helping them?
One of the biggest obstacles is coming off of autopilot. We're all just so used to just going and doing what we've been doing for forever. So to check that behavior and to stop and ask yourself, why did I do that? Why did I say that? Why did that thought pop in my head? That is very hard to do. Because again, that means that you have to check yourself and you really have to be mindful of what you're doing and whom you're speaking to and how you say it. And again, come off autopilot. That is definitely the hardest, most difficult thing that I have to deal with when working with facilities or companies and working on a diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Wow. So how does the creation of a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive organization or community improve our well-being including economic, physical, and mental health aspects of our well-being. Because I know right now we mentioned earlier you're in a clinical doctoral program, and so how does that how from the eyes of that particular program, what you're studying right now, how is that relevant to what we're talking about?
Less stress. I mean, ultimately, if you're saying well-being, the well-being component of it is just less stress. Individuals that go to work environments where they feel respected, they feel welcome, they feel heard. They're able to self-actualize that they can actually go into this job and give it all that they got. They're going to be heard, their information is going to be used, and it's not all for naught. And when you do that, again, the stat comes back, your company ends up making more money. And I just think overall, it's a very economical and healthy approach to just life in general. We live in the tri-state area, one of the most diverse arenas in the United States. It only makes sense to have a company that believes in diversity, equity, and inclusion, especially if you're looking to make money. It just really does make sense, because everyone with different backgrounds, different upbringings, different everything has different ideas, and they come with different approaches to things, and there's no telling what you can come up with when you have people from different backgrounds working on the same project. You can come up with something great, and we can see it today. Most corporations, again, that are diverse, they're just making more money.
I think if we've learned anything from the pandemic, it's obviously it's shown us that there's great opportunities through social media, right? A lot of what should I say? Minorities, seem to be utilizing that platform, to grow their businesses.
Media is everything now. The social media is everything. The information. Now, the thing about it is the information you're getting true or reputable? You have to do some fact checking on your own. Not everything that you read or see comes from a peer-reviewed article. So, you have to be very cautious of the information that you feed yourself from, the sources that just aren't really reviewed.
So just at a personal level, how do you keep yourself calm and de-stressed? What are some of the techniques maybe we can share with our general audience as to what you do every day? Because we're actually negotiating some really difficult waters in our world right now, and everybody can use a little extra support.
I will honestly say one of the things that really helped me emotionally, spiritually, just overall well-being was going back to school, getting my master's, pursuing my doctorate. It feeds my need for greatness, so to speak. Being a professional athlete, I pursued that, and that was something that it just was deep within me to say, hey, I want to do this. I want to go to the highest level. I want to, like you say, just stay determined. I want to stay focused. This is my drive. Me getting a master's and doctorate, same thing. It's not just you just don't wake up and it's just a simple thing to do. Correct. There's a lot of research. There's a lot of work to do. So it still, that drive is still there for me to do that, and that makes me feel well. Exercise, waking up, working out, going for walks. I am an avid golfer at this point, just staying busy, and also having my why, my reason why. I have 2 children, 2 boys, 13 and 7, modeling behavior that they can see, so that they see the effort that I'm putting forth. They see the end results of everything that I'm doing as well. Really just putting on the show for them. That's definitely motivation for me as well. So those things keep me kind of grounded and just cool and calm. And I think I got a lot of the adolescent just tense energy out with playing football when I was younger. Nowadays, I don't know if you could pay me to run into somebody and hurt them at this point. Physically, I think it would hurt, but all in all, man, it's just stress for me. I try to keep it at a minimal. Football definitely taught me a lot by having me be able to think on my toes, be able to midstream adjust quickly, have a short memory, meaning yes, negative things do happen, but learn from them. They're not the end of the world, and be able to move on, move forward from them. And there are some mental health practices that you can do, and
Such as?
well, it's breathing. A lot of CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy, it promotes, thoughts, they create feelings, and the feelings create behaviors. So you definitely have to be mindful again.
So negative thoughts tend to perpetuate
Negative thoughts tend to
feelings and
make you have
behaviors.
negative feelings, and those negative feelings tend to make you behave a certain way. Let's just say, oh, I don't, feel like I don't want to get dressed and go out because I don't feel like I have any clothes that I'm going to wear. That makes you sort of kind of feel down, sad, or angry or frustrated, and your behavior to be, you know what? How about I just stay in the house and just not go at all? That'll be what you would possibly do. But instead, possibly getting up, going out against your own thoughts and will, you go out, you're with your friends, and you end up having fun anyway. So it's really just the thoughts that individuals have that can really start to make the stress higher. And that's where I will have my licensure to be a therapist coming this summer, and just being down and sitting with everyone and really, again, putting thoughts on trial. Like, are these thoughts, is this the truth? Is this really what's going to happen? Like, let's
because not everything that comes into your mind is necessarily true, right?
No, it's what you think it to be. It's what you think it to be. And I mean, we've all had those experiences where what we thought was going to happen, I mean, we can have doomsday in our head. Like you're going to go to work and it's going to be a total just downpour of negativity, but then you go to work and it's just not that bad. So we've all had those experiences, and you have to be able to recall that and say, you know what, it's probably not going to be as bad as I might think it to be. Let me be mindful of the present time now versus thinking in the future and giving myself anxiety and stress. Because if you do that, I mean, that stress can cause heart issues, just overall well-being, because you end up just so tense, high blood pressure, all of those things. You just have to be careful of your thoughts. And so for me, I just really try to be mindful, even when I'm having negative thoughts, try to block them out. There are special little, again, behavioral tricks that you can do. Counting from 100 backwards by 7. That's 100% going to take every thought that you have, you're going to move it to the side, because you're counting backwards from 100 by 7. Unless you're just like a genius, you're going to be concentrating on counting. And again, it just takes your mind off of things, and you ride the wave of anxiety. And by the time you're done, by the time it's over with, everything's okay.
Wow. So, so Robert, as we come to the end of our second episode of Wellbeing, it's really been a pleasure to have you. I mean, it's an honor. And as I'm sitting next to you, I'm seeing that Superbowl ring. And I just, it's amazing.
It was a gift.
Can I kindly see it? Maybe we can show it for the audience.
Oh, well, yes. I mean, you've cool. Yeah, I got lucky. I'll say that. I got really, really lucky. And awesome. The football gods, they look down upon me and blessed me with this opportunity to play with a great organization and get a ring and be able to talk about it. So I'm very glad to be where I'm at in that regard, with football, for sure.
That's so great. So is there anything else that you'd like our audience to know about the value of diverse, equitable, and inclusion in organizations and communities?
I just believe it's time. History shows that it's just time to accept everyone. Come as you are. Now, as you come, that's whom you lay out to be. Individuals have to come and give the same respect that they desire back. So it's just one of those things. I just believe that it's time to just accept everyone as they come. Everyone should be heard, and we all work together. to just make sure that everyone is okay. It's not just about one individual. It's not just about one group. It's about everybody in harmony working together.
Yeah, and I read something earlier. It's like but treating people with kindness, right? It's
Yeah.
like it's working together, but really treating people with kindness. And, that's huge. So
It's
again,
amazing that we can sit here and say that that's hard for people to do. Just to treat individuals with kindness. It's like sometimes people just aren't kind. They somehow thrive and work and function on, again, not being on autopilot and going through their life and just treating people the way that they've been treating people.
Well,
for
I'm sure that you've gotten treated differently because of your status of a football player and the accolades that come with it, versus somebody who's maybe just I don't want to discriminate, but maybe somebody on the street that's just has a menial type of job. Someone may not show them the same respect that they would
Right.
you, right?
Right.
And that and at the end of the day, we're human beings, right? So you've been fortunate and blessed to have achieved a lot,
Right.
versus somebody else who hasn't, but they're just as important to our world, and they bring things to the table as well.
Yeah, when giving, the consulting and speaking, when I do some speaking events, I typically say this, and I think it makes a lot of sense. When an individual is born, okay, I believe all individuals on this earth, when they were born, had no choice in the race or ethnicity that they were born with. They had no choice in that regard. So to judge someone or, again, have prejudice or bias towards someone for something that they had no control over, to me, doesn't make sense.
Silly.
It doesn't make sense whatsoever. Again, I had no choice that I was raised in a Christian household. That was what my mother laced me up with. That's what I had.
Right.
So with that being said, why treat me with prejudice or bias for something that I had no control over?
Right.
Why not embrace me, respect me, or embrace and respect anyone for things that they practice?
Yeah.
Or things, again, that they have no control over.
Yep.
We're blessed to be the age that we are. We don't have any control over it. It's just the time keeps ticking.
Yes.
Good.
So again, Robert, just thank you so much for joining us here at PKRG-TV. It's been such an honor. And I just wanted to ask you, is there some place you can point us to, or we can kind of get some resource information, to kind of delve a little bit into what we've been talking about today?
What would
you recommend?
Yes, no, I'm very careful in the information that I give. Anyone can reach out to me on Clarity Triumph on my Instagram page, or Robert E. Douglas II, CLC, on LinkedIn, and ask me questions, and then I'm able to give them peer-reviewed information versus websites that I really don't have any type of information about, or things of that nature. Or we can work together and figure out if there's a diversity, equity, and inclusion certificate program that they want to try to indulge in just to gain more information and learn. But I'm very particular about information that I give out. I try not to have it be opinionated. I try to really just use factual information.
Awesome. Well, again, just thank you for joining us today here in Wellbeing. It's really been an honor. And my name is Trevor Dublin. I'm your host. And again, thank you, and have a great day.